All right, so the Browns are going to cut their roster down to 53 guys by the end of tomorrow. So today, want to put my last guess into what the Browns are going to do at that 53-man cut down. Now, before we get into it, there are some situations that you got to be aware of that could affect the Browns' 53-man roster. Let's start with what's going on with like NFI and everything else. So Browns have some situations here to keep in mind. On the injury front, you got Deshaun Watson, obviously. He's very likely to be on IR given that he tore his Achilles not too long ago. I know he's posted videos of him making great progress, but it overwhelmingly benefits the Browns to put him on IR. And I don't see a reason for them not to put him on IR at least the beginning of the season. They're not going to put him on season-ending IR just yet. I think they'll make that decision later in the year. But yeah, I see IR coming for Deshaun Watson regardless of wherever his camp thinks he is in his progress. He's just not going to be on the active 53 this year. All right, so Mike Hall, if he starts the season on IR, that's another question. That seems to be more up in the air than the Deshaun Watson one, but that could be another roster spot here. You're already accounting for the Deshaun Watson roster spot to not be there, but Mike Hall is one where if he does get announced on IR, that is +1 roster spot here, right? David Bell, probably going to be on IR, and that's his best bet to stay with the team. Maybe he gets cut, injury settlement type situation, but again, you expect him to not really be accounted for here. Quincy Judkins, if we're talking about the suspension guys, right? Quincy Judkins, you got to account for that. Maybe he's suspended week 1. He's not signed right now. You kind of got to hold a roster spot empty for him. Isaiah Bond is going to be on the roster, but could get suspended. That's another guy. If he does, it would be a +1 on the roster here. Same thing with Devin Bush. So you got to account for those situations. They can open up some roster spots. Overall, we got about 4 spots that could be open, could not by the end of next week. We really aren't going to know. And look, the bottom of the roster is going to consistently be in flux for every NFL team throughout the season. The Browns are no different. And these situations are going to cause some flux here, right? So let's start with the offense here. Well, special teams. Let's start with special teams. This is fairly simple. The Browns are definitely going to keep 4 special teamers. So Corey Bojorquez, he's going to be on the team. That's a lock. Then you have a kicker, whether it's Dustin Hopkins or not, which it might not be Dustin Hopkins, right? Did not kick well in that last game. Might have kicked himself off the team. Maybe that's the case here. But you're going to keep a kicker. That's another special team spot that's going to be locked up. DeAndre Carter, kick return. He's going to make the roster and be a wide receiver. That's locked up. And then long snapper Rex Sunahara, whether you keep him or not, you're keeping a long snapper on the roster for sure. So that's 4 spots locked up just for special teams alone. Then we move here for offense. And we'll get the offense last. We'll get the offense last because there's more questions about offense than there is defense. But let's look at defense, right? So we got the 4 spots locked up for special teams. I think that's pretty obvious. All your starters locked up here, right? I don't think you expect any of these guys, their availability not to be there week 1. So it's 11 guys. Shelby Harris is definitely making the team. Aiden Huntington already announced. Mike Hall. So we're at 11, 12, 13, 14 for Isaiah McGuire. Miles Harden probably making the team 15. Cam Mitchell making a team 16. And then I have +1 here for linebacker because the Browns are going to more than likely carry at least 6 of those guys. Right now, I don't have 6 guys highlighted, so maybe they go out and find a linebacker. And then +2 for corner. Right now, I have them keeping 4. I think they're going to find 2 corners in free agency after all the cuts. So if you add up all those spots, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, make sure you add the +1s and +2s. So we're at 20 spots here for defense, locked up and 4 spots for special teams. Now look at the guys highlighted in orange. Those are the guys who could make the team, could get cut, right? DeMonte Casey, I think he has a pretty solid argument to make the team between him and Rayshon Jenkins. He's certainly been the better player. I know a lot of people want Donovan McMillan to make the team. I think he's a practice squad candidate. I think Chris Edmonds is also in that competition there as well. We touched on corner. I don't think Don Jones and Lamron James are going to make this roster. I think they're going to go outside to seek for another corner. Seems like they're not happy with Cam Mitchell at slot. So I think they're going to look there, and they probably want to get another boundary corner. Keep an eye. If A.J. Green gets cut, I think they bring back A.J. Green. And I think Chase Lucas out of San Francisco is another name to keep an eye on as well, as far as the slot can be. Mike Hilton just got cut, so maybe Mike Hilton is who the Browns bring in here. But they're gonna go outside for, I think, the last 2 corner spots on the team. Linebacker, they're going to keep Mahmoud Diabate. They're going to keep Carson Schlesinger, Devin Bush. Now, remember, Devin Bush could get suspended, so this could turn from a +1 to a +2 in terms of bringing in other linebackers. Then you have Jerome Baker highlighted in orange and Winston Reed. I think these guys have a solid chance to make the roster, both of them. I think Jerome Baker's probably a little bit more of a safer bet because he's a vet than Winston Reed, and the Browns are thin at linebacker, so that might save him as well. I think the Browns are going to have to go shopping for another linebacker here, but they're probably going to want to keep 6. And they just don't have 6 on the roster right now with Nathaniel Watson being on IR. For season-ending IR with the bicep injury. If we look at the edges, the Browns are definitely keeping Alex Wright at this point. Isaiah McGuire, he's staying. We know Aiden Huntington, Mike Hall safe. Mike Hall could not be on the roster. If he's not on the Week 1 roster because of he's on IR, then Sam Kamara makes the team probably. But they're probably going to be in-house for whoever they keep here at defensive tackle. I think they feel really good about that room. Mason Graham obviously going to make the team. Malik Collins and Shelby Harris are safe. Myles Garrett obviously safe. Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, I think he's relatively safe. And I know they like Cam Thomas a lot. They would love to keep him, but it's probably not a priority at this point. So, if there are players they would like to keep less than Cam Thomas and don't need to keep, then Cam Thomas makes the team. So we'll see what happens there. So 20 locks here. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 questionables for this room as well. So 5 question marks, 20 locks on the defense. Let's go ahead and look at the offense. Let me click over to the offense. All right. So the offense is the one where people are going to have a lot of questions on, right? Are you going to keep 4 quarterbacks? All of this stuff. Let's go through the locks here. All your starters obviously safe. You get 11 throughout. Then you get Cornelius Lucas, every offensive lineman left. Cornelius Lucas, Tevin Jenkins, Luke Whippler, Zach Zenter. They're safe too. So we're at 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Harold Fanon, safe. That's 16. Dylan Sampson, safe. That's 17. Isaiah Bond, safe. That is 18. Dylan Gabriel, Shador Sanders, safe. That is 20. And then +1 for linebacker, Quinshon Junkins spot. That's safe, but, if he gets suspended early in the season, that spot is going to be open for another one. You might have to go shopping here for a running back. And I think the Browns will carry 4 running backs throughout the season. So the question is, do they keep Pierre Strong? Do they keep Amani Marshall? Or do they go shopping for another running back, which is definitely possible, right? If Aldrick Estime pops available, then they probably grab him. They grab Quinshon Junkins. They have those 4 running backs. They run the ball 500 times, and they feel pretty good about it. So 21 locks here for the Browns defense, for Browns offense, my bad. And if we do the quick math on that, that's 41 + 4. We got 45 locked roster spots, which means 8 spots are up for grabs on the 53. Now, this is already accounting for the positions where we're already assuming the Browns are going to go shopping, right? So there's 6 corners accounted for in that lock count, but there's 4 corners I have on the roster because I've accounted for the 2 spots you're going to leave open for that. So in reality, about 8 spots up for grabs. We go through this list and we can look at the names available, right? Kenny Pickett. Are you going to keep 4 quarterbacks? Are you going to use one of these 8 spots that are up for grab on Kenny Pickett? Or are you going to use it to keep Deontay Johnson or Gage Larvinack? Are you going to use it to keep Amani Marshall? I think using it to keep that extra running back. Probably unlikely, but I will reserve one of these question spots. So 8, I'm going to take one off for the extra running back they're going to keep, because maybe they don't keep Pierre Strong. Maybe they don't keep Amani Marshall. But I do think they're going to keep 4 running backs. So that's at 7, right? We got to look at the position groups here. Where are we short? Where the Browns are probably going to keep another wide receiver or another player. Wide receiver is one of those ones you could have the question for, because right now we got one lock in Jamari Thrash, one lock in Jerry Jeudy, another lock in Cedric Tillman, Isaiah Bond. We know DeAndre Carter is going to make the team here. So we got 5 wide receivers here. They could go into the season with 5. That wouldn't be crazy. They could go into the season with 6 and keep Deontay or Gage Larvinack. Whichever one they feel better about, whichever one they feel like can give them more potential, that's the one they keep. They ran both of these guys with the ones in the last preseason game. So I imagine they're both competing for that spot. I don't think both of these guys have been amazing in camp. I know Gage has gotten a lot of praise, but he hasn't been that much better, or I don't even say better. I think he's had similar issues to Deontay Johnson on tape. You know, Gage's routes just aren't really great. Deontay's routes have a history of being much better than they've shown on tape. So honestly, whatever the internal argument is there in the building about who's look better, that a go-to, or both these guys can lose out and they just keep 5 wide receivers. How do they feel about DeAndre Carter as a wide receiver? I don't think they think very highly of him as a wide receiver. So let's say we just put that one in a question mark box right now. Like, you know, we'll see we'll come back to that dilemma here, right? David Bell's probably going to be on IR, so they're safe from that one. But all right, let's go to defense. So right now, I think if we're looking at our 7 spots, I think Joe Tryon-Shoyinka grabs that first one, right? So we'll put number 1 here. Number 1, Joel gets that first spot. I think because you're short at linebacker, the second guaranteed spot up for grabs goes to Jerome Baker. And then you probably got to get it to Winston Reed here just to get to 6 here. So Winston Reed here, safe. DeMonte Casey, I would give him that 4th guaranteed spot. And then Cam Thomas, I think they want Cam Thomas to make the team, right? But you got to make sure you're at your minimum thresholds right now. So Cam Thomas, keeping him would be a luxury. You only got 4 spots right now in this count. Keeping him would be a luxury because you have enough guys to fill in. Aiden Huntington can really take Joe Tryon-Shoyinka's spot. That's another thing I'll be looking to. Do they think Aiden Huntington can do Joe Tryon-Shoyinka's job right now? Right, which is to be that heater, blitz wide. I know they've been playing Aiden Huntington a lot at 3-tech, but he's a really good athlete, really short guy. So maybe you feel like you can use him as that wide 9 kind of heater. Maybe that's what you feel. But keeping Cam Thomas here would be a luxury. But you got to see if you want to keep that luxury there, right? You got 3 spots left. Let's make sure we're not in any pitfall situations here on offense. I think you're pretty good here. Again, tight end, maybe you want to keep 3 tight ends, so you keep Blake Whitehart. I don't think Blake Whitehart is worth rostering at this point. And I think you could just be creative with how you use your 2 tight ends plus an eligible tackle. You're keeping 9 offensive linemen. I think you should be fine, right? You can use Aiden Huntington as a fullback. You can use your extra offensive lineman to block in heavy personnel situations, be tackle eligible. I think you feel okay with keeping 2 tight ends. I know that might be a hot take, but I think you feel okay with keeping 2 tight ends. If that's not up there, right, you got 5 wide receivers. I don't think that's a crisis amount to keep. You got 3 quarterbacks. You're not at crisis mode. So I think we're at luxury pick time, right? So of the guys on this list, I think the guy they want to roster the most is probably Cam Thomas, right? He's had the best camp of all these guys on this list. So let's go back to Cam Thomas. Let's give him that number 5 spot. So I think he does make the roster here by the tip of his teat. And he might get cut because they got to do some maneuvering here, right? Between Kenny Pickett, Deontay Johnson, Blake Whitehart, who I think is cut, and Gage Larvidan, because remember, we're accounting for 4 running backs here. So either Pierre Strong or Monty Marshall make the team. I think Pierre Strong might make the team if they can't get a running back in free agency. But if they can get Aldrich Estimate, and I think both those guys are cut, and then you bring back a Monty Marshall on the practice squad. So right now, you're at 5 spots. You need 2 more guys to claim. Gage Larvidan, Kenny Pickett, Deontay Johnson. Now, the initial 53, Kenny Pickett's going to make it. So that's the 6th spot right there. Right. That's number 6 right there. Okay. Kenny Pickett's going to make the initial 53. Will he be on the game day roster? I don't know. Maybe they find a trade for Kenny Pickett. Maybe they can't find a trade and say, hey, look, we value him enough as a backup, and we don't think he's going to clear waivers. My thinking is this. If Kenny Pickett can't be traded, like you're looking around, you keep him on the 53, nobody's calling you for Kenny Pickett. Unless you truly, truly, truly believe in him to be a starter, you might as well cut him and try to sneak him onto your practice squad. The reason I think that might be possible, if nobody wants to trade for Kenny Pickett, it means that there's not really a market there. He's going to clear waivers. And if he does clear waivers, I think the team that has the best chance of getting him on a practice squad is the Cleveland Browns, because where else is he going to get an opportunity to play other than the Browns, who can tell him, hey, if Joe Flacco goes out early, we will activate you from the practice squad and then let you play, because we don't want the rookies to go in. So I can easily see that situation. I know that the Browns don't really have much of an issue with Tyler Huntley being in that position, right? I know they cut him, but, some people in the building are big fans of Tyler Huntley. So I wouldn't be surprised they bring him back on that practice squad and have him fulfill that role. I think the game week backup for Joe Flacco is likely going to be on the practice squad. The game day backup, it's going to be Dylan Gabriel. But if we're talking about the initial 53, well, Kenny Pickett's going to make it. A similar philosophy is why I think Deontay Johnson is going to take this last spot. Gage Larvidan, if he gets cut, not really going to ring any bells. You got a really good chance to claim him on the practice squad. Deontay Johnson might get claimed by somebody. So you got to do the math of who's easier to retain if we decide we want to keep Kenny Pickett for a week, trade him, and then bring back a wide receiver, right? You might be able to bring back Gage Larvidan. Deontay Johnson might be a little bit more difficult. Now, ultimately, they might be hearing around the league that nobody wants Deontay Johnson, that he's poison, and they'll just roll with that, cut him, and then just keep Gage Larvidan. But I do think this last spot comes between these two. There's going to be a lot of people who want Gage to get that spot. There's going to be a lot of people who want Deontay to get that spot. But that's why I think the final spot comes down to. But what is clear to me right now is that the Browns can keep everybody that they really, really want to keep right now and still have 4 quarterbacks on the roster. So the idea that keeping 4 quarterbacks is impossible, it's really not. It is something they can do. Now, I tend to think that the Browns are pushing this idea to sell one of these guys on a trade, probably Kenny Pickett. But there is a chance here that they just keep him, because it's the difference between keeping Kenny Pickett or not is just picking between Deontay Johnson and Gage Larvidan. It's not that big of a deal. Would you rather have a veteran backup, or would you rather have a 5th wide receiver who's a project, or a rookie wide receiver who's a backup special team? You're not really losing much either way. It's not going to really shift wins or losses either way. So I think it's a no-brainer between that or Kenny Pickett. You're going to pick Kenny Pickett and just select one of these 2 guys. So that's what I think is going to go down tomorrow. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.